All right, welcome. Today we're going to unpack an absolutely incredible story. How the northern kingdom of Israel, an entire nation, just vanished from the map.
I mean, really think about that question. How does an entire nation just disappear? It's a huge question, and it's the mystery we're diving into today. This isn't just a story about a government getting overthrown. This is about a people being scattered and their entire identity getting erased. And let me tell you, the story of ancient Israel is one fascinating and pretty brutal case study.
Okay, so to get what's happening, you have to picture the scene. This wasn't happening in a vacuum. The Kingdom of Israel was kind of like a small piece on a giant geopolitical chessboard, stuck between two massive powers. On one side, you've got the Assyrian Empire, the undisputed regional superpower, and on the other, the ancient Kingdom of Egypt, Assyria's biggest rival. Israel, it was stuck right in the middle.
So this incredibly tense situation sets the stage for our first act, a super high-stakes gamble made by the last king of Israel, a guy named Hoshea. And it's a decision that would absolutely seal his kingdom's fate.
Now, to really get Hoshea's gamble, you need to understand his position. He wasn't some fully independent king, not at all. He was what's known as a vassal. Basically, this meant he owed his loyalty and, more importantly, a ton of money to the king of Assyria, Shalmaneser. Think of it like a tax for protection and to show you know who's boss.
So what does Hoshea do? He decides to break all the rules with two incredibly risky moves. First, he secretly sends messengers down to Egypt, Assyria's sworn enemy, trying to cook up an alliance. And second, to really prove he means business, he just stops paying the tribute. From Assyria's point of view, this was nothing short of open rebellion.
An empire like Assyria, they don't just let their vassals rebel. No way. The response was swift, it was total, and it was absolutely brutal. King Shalmaneser saw what Hoshea did as treason, and he moved in to crush the rebellion.
So the Assyrian army marches on Israel's capital city, Samaria, and puts it under siege. And this wasn't some quick battle. We're talking 3 long, grueling years. The city was completely surrounded, cut off from everything, and basically starved into submission. Can you even imagine the horror of being trapped inside that city for 3 whole years?
After those 3 years, well, the inevitable happened. The city's defenses were breached, and Samaria fell. The kingdom of Israel's fight was over. Its independence was just gone, forever.
But the Assyrians didn't just conquer and leave. Oh no, they had a strategy. They started a mass deportation. The entire Israelite population was exiled, scattered all across the vast empire, to places like Halah, Gozan, and the towns of the Medes. The whole point was to completely shatter their national identity so they could never ever unite and rise up again.
So that's the what that happened. But what's really interesting is that the source text is way more focused on the why. It frames this whole catastrophe not as just a political mistake, but as the direct result of a broken spiritual contract. And here it is, the core explanation right from the source. It says point blank that all this destruction and exile happened because the people had broken their sacred covenant with their God, the very same God, the text points out, who had brought them out of Egypt in the first place. And what's wild here is just how specific these accusations get. It's not vague at all. The source gives a whole list of violations, worshiping other gods like Baal, building these hilltop shrines for idols, practicing things like divination and even child sacrifice, and on top of all that, completely ignoring the warnings they were getting from their own prophet.
This slide really just lays it all out, doesn't it? The contrast is so sharp. On one side, you have the covenant, a promise of deliverance in exchange for exclusive worship. And on the other side, the reality, a nation that, according to the source, chased after worthless idols, and in doing so became worthless themselves. It's just a really stark contrast between the deal and what actually happened.
But the story doesn't actually end with the exile. You've got to wonder, what happened to the now empty land of Samaria? Well, the Assyrians had a plan for that too, and it leads to a really strange and fascinating new chapter in this story.
See, to really cement their control and make sure the Israelites could never come back, the Assyrian king basically imported people from all over his empire, from places like Babylon, Cutha, and Sepharvaim, and he settled them in the captured Israelite towns. This was really the final nail in the coffin for the former kingdom. And this is where the story gets just plain bizarre. These new settlers, they start having a very unusual problem. They're being attacked and killed by lions. Yeah. Lions.
So they come to the conclusion that they must have seriously offended the local god of the land because they have no idea how to worship him correctly.
So the Assyrian king sends back one of the exiled Israelite priests to teach them the ropes. But here's the thing. The new folks don't abandon their old gods. As you can see here, they just kind of add the new one to the mix. The Babylonians are worshiping a god called Succoth-Benoth, the Kuthites have Nergal, and the Sephardites were even sacrificing their own children to their gods, Adramelech and Anamelech.
And this quote from the text just perfectly sums it all up. What you get is this strange religious blend, what scholars call syncretism, born right there in Samaria. The new inhabitants, they learn to worship the God of Israel, to stop the lion attacks, but they're doing it right alongside their own whole collection of idols.
So that's where we'll leave it. A nation is exiled for blending its beliefs, and its land is then repopulated by people who create an even more complex religious mix. It leaves us with this really powerful question, doesn't it? What happens to identity, to culture, to faith, when worlds are forced to collide like this? What's lost, and what new thing gets created in its place? Something to think about.